It's the year 1983. The 1984 Olympics at Los Angeles are coming up, and those are the days for every athlete to compete at their very best. However, the IAAF decided to create an event both for track and field people, in which is the World Championships. Originally, the games were held every 4 years from 1983 to 1991. However, this all changed as the games were then held every 2 years after 1991. The first World Championships had over 150 nations compete. It may not seem like a lot compared to the recent games where there are 205 nations competing, but back then in 1983, it was quite a load of nations competing. Was there anything that impressed me throughout the games of Helsinki in this current day? Well, there are quite a few. For example, the women's 400 meters is quite an interesting one to look at. You see, in this current day and age, no one of this generation has ever ran a sub 48 400. It's quite intriguing to me that the only two women to run sub 48 are far ahead of their time and ran times where no woman would be able to run in an open 400 meter. However, on the other side of things, the men's 400 meter wasn't really too interesting to watch. If anything, the time for gold was 45.05, and which in this day and age, it would never be possible to get a gold medal in such a big event like the World Championships, or Olympics perhaps. The 4x100 meter men's race was also another event that quite caught my eye, as they set the world record with a time of 37.86, which if you come to think about it, has been improved by 1 second with the Jamaicans 4x100 meter world record. There was also the rise of a new athlete on the track, who was Carl Lewis, who won gold in the 100 meters, the 4x100, and the long jump. At this time of the year, the main competitors were the United States, East Germany, and the Soviet Union. It seemed like at this point, it wasn't really going to change much. However, little did they know, it would change quite a lot. There's not much to say about the events at Helsinki other than that Helsinki would be used for the World Championships again in 2005. But other than that, everything is seeming to go out just fine. The Los Angeles Olympics was right on the corner and would be a good sign to all these athletes. Despite the fact this is the second year of the World Championships, it is quite expected that there would be a lot of new championship records, whereas of today's age, it's not so quite common to see a championship record. So while the championship records were common, world records were still a potential to happen. And little did we know, we would get a new world record. By a long shot. Ben Johnson, who would set the world record with an astonishing time of 9:83 in the 100 meters. However, keep that in mind as I'll talk about that in a bit. The 200 meter champion Calvin Klein, Calvin Smith, wins a second time, in which is one of the first times an athlete reclaims their title in the World Championships. The 400 meter time in the men's has improved by a long slight, in which the new championship record now being at 44.33, ran by Thomas Skonleb, an East German athlete who has a background in being part of the European Junior Championships. On the field side of things, almost every single event had a new championship record. For those wondering which was the event that didn't have a new championship record, it was the javelin throw. This was probably the closest the field section will ever come to accomplishing the most game records, besides the first year in 1983. On the women's side of things, every single field event has a new championship record set. Sadly, the track side didn't have the same feeling as the field side. However, on the women's side of things, the 4x100 meter and the 4x400 relays had some sort of three-way competition between the Soviet Union, United States, and East Germany. Not only that, but the women's side also had a new event added, which was the 10,000 meters. If I'm completely honest, that probably just makes the competition on the field more intense between the Soviet Union, the United States, and East Germany, and just adds a reason to watch the relays in the 1987 games at Rome. As the 1987 games was wrapping up, the 1988 Olympic Games at Seoul was just right on the corner for everyone to be excited for. Athletes like Ben Johnson and Florence Griffith-Joyce were right on the corner for Seoul for performances that have never been expected. However, what no one was ready for was for Ben Johnson to get his records taken away from history. What do I mean? You see, Ben Johnson was found guilty of using performance-enhanced drugs along with many other athletes on the field.
The urine sample of Ben Johnson, Canada, athletics 100 meter, collected on Saturday 24 September 1988, was found to contain the metabolites of a banned substance, namely stanozolol. It's an anabolic steroid.
It was confirmed that he's been using them since 1987, the year of the 1987 games at Rome. This has caused his 1983 along with his 9.79 record at Seoul to be taken out of history and would be replaced by Carl Lewis's times. Carl Lewis would soon become a 3-time world champion at the 100 meter, 4x100 meter, and long jump, and would set new championship records in the 100 meter and the 4x100 meter. Considering this is the second world championship held by the IAAF, I'm going to list up the events that had no championship record just to make things quick, because let's just say a lot of new records were set on the field. The men's 200 meter, 1500 meter, marathon, 4x100 meter, javelin throw, the women's 400 meter, 800 meter, and the 3000 meter. The fall of the Soviet was going to happen really soon, and while the Soviets in East Germany were the powerhouses during the game, the next game was going to change as the United States would win most of the gold medals compared to the other countries. But as always at this time, the 1992 Olympics at Barcelona were soon coming up, and to make things more convenient, it was time to see what these athletes had in store before the Olympics came by. To start things off, 2-time Olympic gold medalist Carl Lewis set a new world record on the 100 meter with a time of 9:86. Now, the reason that the time is quite low compared to when Ben Johnson set a world record of 9:79 at the Olympics in Seoul was due to Ben Johnson using chemicals to improve his performance, which caused him to be banned and stripped his world records away. Not only did he run a new world record in the 100 meter, but he was the last leg of the 4x100 meter and brought the US team with a new world record of 37:50. There was also the rise of new athletes. One of them was Michael Johnson, who started running his World Championships career by running a 20.01 in the 200 meter to win the gold. There was also the rise of another athlete on the men's section by the name of Nurendran Morselli, who won the 1500 meter with a new championship record with a time of 30:32. Another athlete who was starting to rise was Yobes Ondinkai, who ran a new championship record on the 5000 meter. On the field side for the men, the Americans set 3 of the 4 championship records, and one of them was a world record set in the long jump by an athlete named Mike Powell. The last championship record was set by a Soviet named Sergei Bubka in the pole vaulting. On the women's side, a former Olympian Katrin Krabi ran both the 100 meter and the 200 meter and got gold in those 2 events. She also did run the 4x100 meter and the 4x400, but sadly got bronze for both of those events. Sadly, on the women's side of the field, there was not much that went on. Despite the fact that this was the 3rd World Championships, no new championship records were set on the field section for the women's. To wrap things up, I'm going to list off the new championship records that were set. These were the men's 100 meter, 1500 meter, 5000 meter, 20 kilometer walk, 4x100 meter relay, long jump, high jump, pole vault, decathlon, women's 400 meter hurdles, and 10 kilometer walk. This seemed to be a really great year for the men's side in terms of new championship records. However, as the games progress, the records will soon start to get higher, which will eventually make things harder to compete with. But as of the time of the games, there were a lot of great accomplishments made for these people. Now, the 1993 games at Stuttgart had an event in which may be the only time I'll ever mention this. But first, the games in 1993 had an increase of 20 nations from the past year in 1991. 1991 had about 160 nations participating, while the games in 1993 had about 180 nations. On another subject, the one event that particularly got my attention was the 50 kilometer walk. You see, there has been one competitor named Jesus Angel Garcia Bargado who has been race walking since 1993, and guess what? He's still doing race walking to this day. The most recent race walking he's done is at the Rio 2016. He is also known for having the most attended Olympic Games ever. There's also one other event that caught my attention, and that was the 4x100 meter relay on the men's. This event was one of the most anticlimactic events for good reason. I say this because the United States had the most powerful relay team you could ever think of. The team had 3 Olympic runners that had gone under 44 in an open 400, and the team couldn't have gotten any better from the looks of things. Sure, it would have been beast if they had 4 runners to go under 44 in an open 400, but the fact that they had 3 runners just made them look more powerful than the rest of the field. There was also a new world record set in the men's 110 meter hurdles by an athlete named Colin Jackson, a British athlete who won silver at the 1988 Olympics at Seoul. Sadly, after his world record, he will not seem to win any more gold medals for the Olympics. On the other hand, he does come back to win 1 more world championships late into his career and would have his world record last for about a decade. Kenyan runner Moses Kiptanui would come back to not only win his event twice, but would also set a new championship record in the 3,000 meter steeplechase. In the sprinting events, there was honestly not much that went on, except the fact that there was a new athlete by the name of Frankie Fredericks, a 2-time silver medalist at the 1992 Olympics, and set a new championship record in the 200 meter. The women's events was also quite interesting to watch. The women's 100 meter finals was quite the intense one to watch. The championship record was tied between Gally Devers and Marilyn Audi with a time of 10:82. In the distance events, the Chinese were dominating the field, with 3 Chinese athletes took first place in the 1500 meter, 3000 meter, and 10,000 meters. To make things better, the Chinese took the top 3 places in the 1500 meter. British athlete Sally Gunnell set a new world record in the 400 meter hurdles. She was the 1992 Olympic champion at the 400 meter hurdles and won silver at the 1991 Tokyo World Championships. One intense event that I've been saving was the 4x100 meter. Like the women's 400 meter, the 4x100 meter woman ended up the same way, with both American and Russian relay team ended up in a tie. To make things even more intense, the both teams set a new championship record, with the time being 41:49. There was also another championship record set in the 4x400 meter with a time of 3:16 by the United States, and this time there was no ties with Russia like the 4x100 meter. On the field side, there was quite a few championship records on the men's side. On the women's side, there was only one world record on the field section, which by itself is impressive to be the only record set on the field side of the women's. Back to the men's field events, I'm going to just talk about the ones that interested me, and that should wrap things up. The decathlon champion Dean O'Brien reclaimed his title as the world championship. To me, reclaiming the title in one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult event, is very impressive. To make things even better, he would set a new championship record. Sergei Bubka, the defending pole vaulting champion, set a new championship record in his 4th world championship, and to pull that off is very impressive after 10 years. The championship records that were set at the championships were the men's 200 meter, 3000 meter steeplechase, 110 meter hurdles, 4x100 meter relay, triple jump, javelin throw, pole vault, decathlon, women's 100 meter, 3000 meter, 10,000 meter, 400 meter hurdles, 4x100 meter relay, 4x400 meter relay, and triple jump. This was quite an interesting championship to look at, with all the new records that were set. Despite the fact that there was quite a load of events where there was no records set, the amount of records set in this championship by itself is enough to say that the games in 1993 was one intense one to watch. I'll be completely honest, I'm not too familiar with the games at Gothenburg. There were very few events that caught my eye, but I might as well talk about the events that did catch my eye, like I do with every single other video. To start a little of a change, let's start with the field events. On the women's side, there was a new world record set on the triple jump by Inesa Kravets, a former silver medalist at the 1992 Olympic Games at Barcelona. To make things even more interesting, there was a new world record set in the men's triple jump by a British athlete named Jonathan Edwards, a former bronze medalist at the 1993 World Championships at Stuttgart. Lars Riedel was a German athlete who set a new championship record at the discus throw with a throw of 68.76. Focusing on the track side of things, a surprise came by as the Americans were, for the first time in the World Championships, did not finish in the 4x100 meter and were out of the medals for the event. However, Canada was able to win the gold medal with the help of a new athlete named Donovan Bailey. Donovan Bailey was a 100-meter Canadian who ran a 9.97 in the 100-meter championships and seemed to be the next 100-meter Olympic champion now that the Olympics was just only a year away. However, the Americans didn't just leave the audience with nothing. American 200-meter world championship Michael Johnson went up for a triple in the 200-meter, 400-meter, and the 4x400 meter and won every single one of those events with gold. Not only did he just win those events, but he was able to set a new championship record with a time of 43.39, just only a tenth of a second away from the world record in the 400 meter. For the distance events, there was a new runner on the rise by the name of Haile Gebrselassie who set a high stance and set a new championship record, and little do the people know that this man will set a high feature on the distance side. Not only did he set a new championship record, but he was the first man to reclaim his 10,000 meter title twice in the World Championships. For the 3,000 meter steeplechase, there was a new championship record set by a man named Moses Kiptanu, a 2-time former 3,000 meter steeplechase runner. On the women's side of things, the 3,000 meter was replaced with the current 5,000 meter, in which for the first 5,000 meter world championship on the women's was Sonia O'Civilian with a time of 14:46. There's also a world record set in the 400 meter hurdles by a woman named Kim Batten. Along with the world record, a new championship record was set by Irina Stankina in the 10,000 kilometer walk. To list all the championship records, there were the men's 200 meter, 400 meter, 3,000 meter steeplechase, 10,000 meter, triple jump, discus throw, women's 5,000 meter, 400 meter, and the triple jump. There were quite a few world records and championship records on its own, but the 100th year of the Olympics was coming up the year next, and it will be fitting to see these athletes come back and perform at their best in the coming Olympics. The 1995 World Championships had its exciting events, and it suits very well that it's only 1 year before the Olympics in 1996 at Atlanta. After the 100th year anniversary of the Summer Olympics, and after the world records being set like Michael Johnson's 200 meter, it was expected that the year after that, 1997, would be the year where it would be settled easy, right? Well, you're correct. After the Olympics in 1996, I wouldn't really expect much from the 1997 Games in Athens. However, there were some events that caught my eye. 1500 meter Hicham El Guerrouj was able to win gold after the disaster in the Olympics where he fell and could have had the chance to win the Olympic gold in the 1500 meters. The reason I bring him up is because he's an athlete that I admire myself, and to see him start winning his titles after a downfall in his mind at the Atlanta 1996 Olympics, he will eventually start setting the bars up really high as he gets more into his career. Prior to the World Championships, the debate on who is the fastest man on the planet was intense. Donovan Bailey ran at 9:84, which is the world record in the 100 meter. On the other hand, Michael Johnson ran a world record in 1932 in the 200 meter, which divided by 2 is about 966 for every 100 meter. Right now, in this current generation, the only man to have ever run under 966 is Usain Bolt all time. The intense rivalry between Michael Johnson and Donovan Bailey rose to the point where both each raced each other in a 150 meter race. Michael Johnson then pulled up a hamstring during the race, and the fastest man in the end was Donovan Bailey. However, between these two athletes and their performances, Michael Johnson did win his third 400 meter title in the World Championships. On the other hand, Donovan Bailey sadly got silver on 100 meter, and the gold was given to a new rising athlete by the name of Maurice Greene. However, on the bright side for Donovan Bailey, he did compete in the 4x100 meter, and Canada won the 4x100 meter relay with a time of 37:86. Speaking of the relays, the 4x400 meter relay was originally won by the United States without Michael Johnson, but due to Andrew Pettigrew admitting in 2008 of testing positive during a drug test from 1997 through 2003, the medals were sadly taken away and were awarded to Great Britain. On the distance side, Ethiopian Haile came back for the 10,000 meter and reclaimed his world title in the time of 27:24. On the women's side, there was the rise of a young Kenyan named Sally Barsusia, who was the youngest woman in the Kenyan to win the World Championships of any event. There was also a championship record set in the 4x100 meter relay by the United States of America with a time of 41:47. On the field side of things, there were two new championship records set in both the pole vault and the decathlon. One of the events was Sergei Bubka, who ran the World Championships since 1987, had finally come down to his last year at the World Championships and would soon retire. However, on the bright side, he was known as a legend to the field side of the IAAF track and field and will most likely never be forgotten. On the women's side, however, nothing really interested me as there wasn't many events I could really talk about. Remember, as I said already, I'm not too much of a person that likes the field events. The championship records that were set at the 1997 World Championships were the men's pole vault, decathlon, and women's 4x100 meter. Overall, the games were after the 1996 Olympics, so I honestly didn't expect much to happen as the greatest events were pulled off in the 1996 Olympics. However, if the games didn't come out the year after the Olympics, it wouldn't really be too interesting. It would be quite boring to watch at times. The World Championships at Seville was quite an interesting one to watch, mainly because of the fact that there were a lot of world records and championship records that stood out to me, and some of them are events that I enjoy myself. For starters, let's start off with the fact that both the men's and women's 100 meter had a championship record. Maurice Greene came into the finish line with a time of 9:80, almost going sub 9.8, and Marion Jones, who ran 10:70, one of the fastest times on the field since Floyd Joy Griffith in 1988. On the distance side, there was Hicham El Guerrouj, who set a new championship record with a time of 3:27. Also, the year before, he broke the world record for the 1500 meter with a time of 3:26 flat. Not only did he set the record, but on the same year, he broke the world record for the fastest mile, which still stands to this day. On the women's side of things, there were new championship records broken in both the 5,000 meter and the 10,000 meter. To add to this, Ethiopia had both world champions in the 10,000 meter. These two athletes were Gedi Wami and Haile Gebrselassie. However, the many events that I just mentioned didn't really stand out to me the most. I also hadn't forgotten about the field side of things. The pole vaulting was being smashed this year, as on the men's side, there was a new championship record, and on the women's side, there was a new world record with a 4:60. The one that stood out to me most was the men's 400 meters, as the legendary Michael Johnson smashes the world record as he had goals on breaking the world record one day. Prior to the games, Michael Johnson was consistently hitting mid-43s in the 400 meter, and it was thought that eventually he would break the world record in the 400 meter. It was just a matter of when. After I just mentioned this short selection of the events that I enjoyed, that's surprisingly it. To list off the championship records, there were the men's 100 meters, 400 meters, 1500 meters, 5000 meter, pole vault, discus throw, the one's 100 meter, 5000 meter, 10,000 meter, and the pole vault. A lot of the major highlights on the championships could be summed up pretty easily for me, which is why this video is shorter than usual. However, the 2000 Olympics at Sydney was coming up, and things were starting to get intense, as so we speak. The 2000 Olympics has passed, and while there may have been some legendary athletes that retired like Michael Johnson, we still have some athletes that stayed from Sydney like Hicham El Guerrouj. The Sydney Games, I'll be honest, wasn't really too entertaining to watch on the track side, and on the field side, well, I think I might have made it to myself clear that I'm not into field events, in which we'll explain why there's not much field events. So the question for me is the 2001 Games at Edmonton enough for me to forget about the 2000 Sydney Olympics? On the field side of things, there was a lot of championship records set, but for those who are into the track events, there's honestly not much into the events where they're entertaining. But there are some events that I found quite impressive. In the men's 4x100 meter, the USA was disqualified from their first place position after a teammate Tim Montgomery failed a drug test, and therefore South Africa won the gold in that event. While the time may have been slow, it was still very accomplishing that South Africa, despite the fact that a country isn't too well known for fast records, was still able to receive gold in the 4x100 meter. To make things worse for the Americans, a 4x400 meter runner named Andrew Pettigrew admitted to failing a drug test which lost him all of his medals from a period including the 2001 World Championships. In the men's 400 meter hurdles, there's the rise of a new athlete named Felix Sanchez by winning his first gold medal in the World Championships. This was also the first time the USA was not at the top of the medals, and instead it was held by Russia with a total of 18 gold medals, while the USA had 13 gold medals. However, on the positive side, an American 110 meter hurdler named Alan Johnson had won his third World Championships after finishing fourth at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. On the women's side for the track events, there was honestly nothing that really interested me. Aside the fact that there was a lot more variety of countries that took the gold in the events, the only new championship record set was in the 20-kilometer walk, which was set by Olimpiada Ivanova. On the field section, there was quite a few selection of new championship records set on the field. For this video, I'm just going to talk about the field events that interest me the most, considering if I were to go through every single one of them, we'd be here for a little longer. Lars Riedel won his 5th gold medal in the discus throw. Pole vaulter Stacy Dragila won a gold medal after her Sydney Olympics gold medal. Not only that, but she also defended her title for pole vault. Tomas Durock would step up onto the field and would win his 3rd consecutive gold medal in the decathlon. Despite the fact that he didn't medal at the Sydney Olympics, the fact that he won gold 3 times consecutively at the World Championships for the decathlon, there is something very impressive towards it. As this video concludes, the new championship records that were set was the men's pole vault, discus throw, hammer throw, javelin throw, decathlon, women's 20-kilometer walk, pole vault, and javelin throw. If I'm honest, the field events did really well for the championships in 2001. However, on the track side, as a track person, nothing honestly interested me. The athletes were fine and all, but nothing really major stood out to me and that really interested me. The 2001 Games was alright, but I feel like there was really nothing that interested me during the track events. Oh boy, where do I start? I'm going to be completely honest with everyone. I've never seen the World Championships hosted. This was one of the very few championships where I've not seen a single event from. You always have the games like the one in Berlin from 2009, or the most recent games like at Beijing in 2015, but you rarely ever hear a conversation about the 2003 World Championships. If anything, this could be a really great to watch, but judging from what I'm about to talk about, it's debatable. To start things off differently, let's start off with the women's track events. The Ethiopians for a while were dominating the distance events. However, one Ethiopian woman by the name of Berhan Adari would step into the field and would win a new championship record with a time of 30:04 in the 10,000 meters. At this point, it was possible to break 30 minutes in the 10,000 meter, but it is very close to being broken in the World Championships. There was also a new championship record set in the women's marathon by an athlete named Catherine Nareba, a former Boston Marathon winner. The walk-in events are one of those that I don't really feel like talking about. However, Russian athlete Yelena Nikolayenova set a new championship record with a time of 1:26.52 in the 20-kilometer walk. On the men's side, it's similar to the women's, where there's not a lot of new championship records on the distance events. A Kenyan runner named Eliud Kipchoge set a new championship record in the 5,000 meter. Also, fun fact about this athlete is that he participated in the Nike project of breaking 2-hour barrier in the marathon. In the 10,000 meter, I feel like the world's two best runners, Kenenisa Bekele and Haile Gebrselassie, would for the first time race head-to-head in a major competition. Between the two, Kenenisa Bekele won the gold in the 10,000 meter, as Haile was starting to get older between these younger and soon-to-be faster athletes. To make things better, Ethiopia took the top 3 spots in the 10,000 meter. Like the women's marathon, the men's marathon was also had the new championship record with a time of 2 hours and 8 minutes and 31 seconds. The men's 4x400 meter had some problems where as 2 of their runners both tested positive and were sadly got their medals scrapped. The United States for a while was at a period where the medals were being strapped in the 4x400 due to the runners having positive drug tests. On the subject of drug tests, the men's 400 meter had American sprinter Jerome Young win in the 400 meter, but he was found positive for drugs and was sadly taken 2 medals away, considering he was part of the 4x400 relay team. On the field side of stuff, there was honestly nothing that interested me. As much as I wanted to talk about the field events, the 2003 field events weren't anything so special on the men's side. To list off the championship records, there was the women's 1500 meter, 10,000 meter, marathon, 20-kilometer walk, pole vault, men's 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter, and marathon. Overall, the championship was dominating on the distance side. The amount of records broken on the distance side was a good sign of something. However, as time progresses, the records will soon become harder to achieve as more people begin to hit the barriers. The 2004 Olympics in Athens was only 1 year away, and there could be a chance that both the sprinting and distance events could shine in the same games. However, only time will tell. 22 years ago, the first official World Championships hosted by the IAAF were held in the same stadium as of 2005's World Championships in Helsinki. The 2005 Helsinki Games were just alright to me. There were quite a few interesting sprinting events that caught my eye in a matter of a couple seconds. The distance and field events were just meh to me. There wasn't many events that impressed me, but was enough to the point where I have at least a little to say. Let's start off with the fact that a semi-new athlete by the name of Allyson Felix came into her first World Championships and won gold for the 200 meter with a time of 22:16. The thing with Allyson Felix is that she was already known to the public. She had a backstory of running fast in high school. She also made it to the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens. We also had the return of the Olympic 100 meter gold medalist Justin Gatlin, who ran a 9:88. Not only did he win the 100 meter, but he decided to step it up a notch and won both the 100 meter and 200 meter, along with the USA completely going 1, 2, 3, 4 with athletes such as Wallace Spearman, John Keeple, a former 200 meter Olympic runner at Sydney, and Tyson Gate, a new athlete on the blocks to look forward to in the future. However, despite the fact that the US had an overpowered team for the 200 meter, they did not win the 4x100 meter in any way. What happened is that during the first heat, someone on the USA team dropped the baton, which unfortunately got the United States disqualified, and the winner of the 4x100 meter relay was France with a time of 38:08. A 400 meter athlete was also on the rise by the name of Jeremy Warner, who ran a 43:93, who would eventually have more success towards his career in the future. On the distance side of stuff, since the retirement of Hicham El Guerrouj, a new athlete would step the bars up high for himself and would win both the 1500 meter and the 800 meter. The athlete was Rashid Ramsey. On the field side of things, there was a new championship record set in the discus throw by an athlete named Virgilijus Alekna. There was also the appearance of Ivan Tikhon, who did win the gold initially, but got his name stripped off because of the use of doping during the time of the games. Back to the women's side of things, there was a distance runner by the name of Tirunesh Dibaba who set a new championship record in the 5,000 meters. To make things even more intimidating, she also won a double in the 10,000 meter, and the country Ethiopia just ruled over the 5,000 meter and 10,000 meter with all 1, 2, and 3. While we're on the distance side of things, the women's marathon had set a new championship record by the British athlete named Paula Radcliffe. There was also another championship record on the 3,000 meter steeplechase by an athlete named Dorcas Izekuru with the time of 9:18. On the field side, for the women's, there were 2 new world records set in both pole vaulting and the javelin throw. The world records were set by the Olympic gold medalist in the javelin throw, Ozledes Mendes, and the Olympic gold medalist in pole vaulting, Yelena Isinbayeva. At the games at Helsinki, there were its fair shares of world records and championship records. To list off the championship records, there were the men's discus throw, the women's 5,000 meter, marathon, 3,000 meter steeplechase, pole vault, and hammer throw. All I can really say about the games at Helsinki is the competition was quite intense, but it's just an alright game to watch. There seemed to be the rise of a few athletes, but other than that, it's not really the games where I know too much per se. Although tomorrow's videos will have the rise of some new athletes, in which some are still competing to this day. I see the 2007 games at Osaka as the games where a lot of track legends that are now old are at their prime ages or at their starting point from becoming a legend. Before we get into the events, let me talk about the conditions prior to the games. The weather prior to the games was pretty bad. There would be times during the summer where the temperature would reach 100 degrees, and there was a lot of talk on whether to host the games in this hot weather. Combined with all this hot weather, there was not many people attending the seats, where not even half of the seats were filled up at the stadium during Osaka. But with all this negative concerns, will this stop from the Osaka games from happening? Well, let's start off with the sprints. With the absence of Justin Gatlin from a positive drug test, an American fellow by the name of Tyson Gay beat out everyone in the field in all three, the 100 meter, 200 meter, and the 4x100 meter. He seemed to be unstoppable at this point in time, but he did not advance too well into his career as he had never won an individual gold medal in any world championships or even Olympics. However, one man by the name of Usain Bolt did get the silver medal in the 200 meter, and the world is left to figure out what this man will have in store for the future. The 400 meter was quite also interesting to watch. A man named Jeremy Warner ran the 400 meter with a time of 43:45, which is quite uncommon to be seen at this time, especially at the World Championships. However, his career didn't really progress too well as this was his fastest time ever recorded. However, from this event, an athlete named LaShawn Merritt did get a silver medal and is still one of the competing athletes to this day. Meanwhile, on the hurdle side, a man from China named Liu Sheng won for the first time gold at the World Championships with a time of 12:95. Another historic run was done by Bernard Lagat, who was the first American to win gold on the 1500 meter since 1908 and was also the first American to win the 1500 meter and 5000 meter double. There was also another athlete on the field by the name of Kinesia Bekele who reclaimed his title on the 10,000 meter, but will also soon go on to win both the 5,000 meter and the 10,000 meter in the upcoming 2008 Olympic Games at Beijing. Not only did he win that double, but he was also the world record holder for both the 10,000 meter and the 5,000 meter. Which, to be honest, is quite outstanding when setting the world records for the two longest track distances when running around the track. On the women's side of track, the young woman Allyson Felix would come back onto the field to win 3 gold medals. The events she ran were the 200 meter, the 4x100 meter, and the 4x400 meter. On the field side of things on the women's, from my eyes, there was no American that won a medal in any event on the field side. For the men's side of the field, there was honestly nothing interesting that caught my eye much compared to in track. However, there was one heptathlon by the name of Brian Clay who sadly had to drop out of the games due to an injury. To finish things off, I'm going to again list up the events that had a new championship record set. And these were the men's 200 meters and the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase. Overall, the games at Osaka weren't per se my favorite. I just feel like this was just an alright event as a whole. However, a selection of these athletes will go on to the 2009 Berlin Games, and the audience will soon realize that these athletes have a lot stored in them for the future. The games at Berlin was one where the sprinting events were intense. A lot was expected in these events, and in the end was delivered. For starters, Usain Bolt, as we all know and love, broke the world record for both the 100 meter and 200 meters.
4, 5 and 6. They're away. Terrific start by Daniel Bailey. Usain Bolt though getting into his running. Here he comes. Usain Bolt challenged by Tyson Gay. Usain Bolt 2 clear meters. Tyson Gay in second place. But away safely this time, and here's the big man already up on Edward. Already up on Clark. The rest of the field are being left behind. Fast run by Mullings and Spearman inside him. But here comes the great man, Usain Bolt, charging down the straight. As best they can, the other men are trying to follow him. Mullings and Spearman. Spearman finishing fast. Bolt wins. Bolt wins.
Now, Jamaica may have not broken the 4x100 meter world record, but they did set a new championship record, so I guess it still made the people happy. The returning 400 meter LaShawn Merritt came back to win his first gold medal at the World Championships with a time of 44:06, which is alright. Sadly, the world champion Jeremy Warner came back for the 400 meter and didn't perform quite as well. However, on the distance side, there was one particular man that was blowing out the competition, and that was Kenenisa Bekele, who won both the 5,000 meter and the 10,000 meter double. Running those two events are quite a long time to go through, but to win gold is both outstanding and considering that it is one of the longest track races in the World Championships. The men's marathon was also quite interesting for me, as the world champion Abel Kiru set a new championship record and opened the gap between his competitor Emmanuel Mutai. A new championship record was set in the 3,000 meter steeplechase by Ezekiel Kemboi. On the women's side, the Olympic 100 meter champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce won her first world championship with a time of 10:73, with the Jamaicans coming in 1-2. The 200 meter defending champion Allyson Felix won her third gold medal on the 200 meter, and to make things better, she won her next gold medal on the 4x400 meter. There was also a new championship record set in the 400 meter hurdles by an athlete named Melanie Walker, an Olympic champion at the 400 meter hurdles at Beijing. On the field section, there was honestly not much that interested me on both the men's and women's events, considering there's not many new championship records set. The championship records that were set at 2009 World Championships were the men's 100 meter, 200 meter, 10,000 meter, marathon, 3,000 meter steeplechase, 4x100 meter relay, women's 400 meter hurdles, and hammer throw. If I'm completely honest, the only reason I know about the Berlin Games was because of the world records that Usain Bolt set. However, there were some rule changes after the 2009 Games at Berlin. In a conference with the IAAF, a new rule was made where the false start rule was changed to one false start and you're out. This would later come back in Daegu with a load of controversy. The 2011 Daegu Games was one of the most controversial games. You see, what happened is, prior to the games, a new rule for the start mechanism was implemented. The rule was that one false start and you're out. You see, prior to the rule, there would be a lot of false starts going on. To minimize the amount of false starts going on, they decided to change the rule in 2010 to the false start rule that we all know and hate. Some say it should go back to the old ways and that we have more than one false start, but here's the problem. If that were the case, if everyone in the stadium false started, you would be getting the event that you would want to see pull back even more. I'm pretty sure no one wanted to see their event being pulled back even more just because some athletes wanted to screw with the system. A good example was the 1996 100 meter finals. There was consistently false starts back and forth. It took about 10 minutes to get to the actual finals. I'm pretty sure no one would have wanted to wait that long just to watch a 10-second sprint. So with this rule being implemented, this caused a load of disqualification to go on, including one which would never be expected: the infamous Usain Bolt false start.
Will go.
This caused a lot of controversy and in the end had a legend lose his chance to defend his title. However, on the bright side, another Jamaican, Johan Blake, decided to step up and win the gold for the 100 meter. While at the games, a lot of competitive sprinters like Justin Gatlin, Asafa Powell, and Tyson Gay did not show up. Not only were the guys affected, but the women's 100 meter was also an unexpected twist. Olympic and 2009 world champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce ended up losing in the 100 meters and got 4th place in the finals. However, let's go into the positive side of things. We had the rise of so many great athletes that are still competing to this day. A young 18-year-old named Karani James won the 400 meter with a time of 44.60. Not only that, but the 800 meter world record holder David Rudisha would win for the first time a gold medal in the 800 meter at the World Championships. Not only that, but this was sadly his fastest time at the World Championships. However, he did compete in the semifinals for the 800 meters at Berlin, but was sadly eliminated. Another woman I forgot to mention was Sally Pearson, who won the 100 meter hurdles with a new championship record and with a time of 12:28, the 4th fastest time in history. However, let's not forget the world record that was smashed in Daegu, the 4x100 meter. The Jamaicans didn't do too well with the sprint competition this year, but to make it up for it, the Jamaicans decided to break the world record in the 4x100 meter at the time of 37:04, a record that isn't well known too well. However, let's look at the field side of things. Long jumper Dwight Phillips won gold 4 times in the World Championships. Robert Hudding defends his title on the men's discus throw. On the women's side of things, a woman named Brittany Reese reclaimed her title as the world champion in the long jump. Now to finish things off, let's get into all the championship records that were set. Men's 4x100 meter, women's 100 meter hurdles, shot put, and javelin throw. Daegu may have been a new way to experience the race with the new false start rule, but let me tell you, the games here had some very interesting events. Whereas if we get into 2013 World Championships at Moscow, it's nothing really too big if I'm honest. The 2013 games at Moscow was one of those games where it was quite anticlimactic. For those who didn't know where Moscow is, well, where the hell have you been? Moscow is in Russia, you know, the country where they don't have the great relations with the United States. Oh well. It's not the worst games out of all of them per se, but it was just one of those games where nothing major happened. Although that's not per se that there wasn't any amazing performances. On the sprinting side of things, there was quite a few performances that were very fun to watch. The two-time gold medalist Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce won 3 gold medals in the 100 meter, 200 meter, and the 4x100 meter. Sure, the times may not have been impressive and not the times that everyone wanted, but to pull off 3 gold medals in these games are impressive. Now, I'm not forgetting Usain Bolt. Sure, he may have won 3 gold medals at Moscow, but at this point the times weren't impressive and were already quite expected. Although, he has medaled in the 200 meter and the 4x100 meter 4 games in a row, which is very impressive. We also did get the return of Justin Gatlin into the World Championships after being disqualified for drug use. However, on the distance side of things, there was nothing really impressive that, if I'm honest, didn't really interest me. The distance side is basically a race at the last 400 meters, so the chances of a world record set is often pretty low. However, there were some absences of athletes like David Rudisha, the 800 meter world record holder, and Johan Blake, the Olympic silver medalist at London. Also, Mo Farah was able to successfully win both the 5,000 meter and the 10,000 meter after a little disappointment at Daegu. On the field side of things, we had Olympic decathlon champion Ashton Eaton returning once more to win gold. Like any other game, there are the championship records. And as always, let's list off the championship records. Men's high jump, women's 4x100 meter relay, and hammer throw. If I'm being completely honest, this was one of my least favorite games to watch. There are a lot of national records and personal bests, but other than that, there's not much that can be said about the events. However, the 2015 games at Beijing does get quite climatic, just the slightest, and you'll see me talk about that next. Well, here we are at last, the 2015 Beijing World Championships. We had our new and old athletes coming into the stadium where the Olympics in 2008 were held. Athletes like Usain Bolt, Asbel Kiprop, Mo Farah are ready to take the gold. In fact, this was one of the most competitive games where we had a lot of new athletes take a step forward and do some very great accomplishments on this stadium. For starters, we have a former heptathlon Daphne Skippers who had a 21:63 in the 200 meters, which is currently the 3rd fastest 200 meter time in history. Great job, Daphne. Have a cookie. There was also the 400 meter Wade Van Niekerk who ran just under 43.5, which isn't too common. However, he set down the hammer and ran a 43.48, which is the fastest non-American in the 400 meters. Unbelievable. I think what I find the most unbelievable is that next year at Rio, he runs a world record of 43.03, annihilating Michael Johnson's world record. I feel like Van Niekerk can still break the world record to go sub 43 once and for all. Usain Bolt came back to win 3 more medals in the championships and continues to run fast as the years come by. Now that 2017 is his final year at the championships and hasn't really shown any form of running any fast times, he ended up delivering a 9:95 with a bronze. Some other athletes that have returned are Mo Farah, David Rudisha, Allyson Felix, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, and we still have a lot more that have returned to the games. Was this the best games I've ever seen? Well, to put it in perspective, I was able to experience the hype for the games, and not so much with the others. I didn't really know too much about the track competition up until 2015, in which I started to know more about these athletes as they're running fast times. Now, like every other game, there are always some sort of championship record. So, for the very last time, let's list off the championship records, starting with the men's decathlon, women's 200 meters, 5,000 meters, 4x100 meters, and hammer throw.